How many times have you wondered why bad things only happen to good people? And how many times has it seemed to you that everything was going well for bad individuals? But are we sure that this is exactly the case? Or are things more complex than they may seem? Thanks to the Zen story that you will hear shortly, you will have a profound revelation that will change the way you perceive life's adversities. So stay until the end, because only then will you be able to fully grasp the message of wisdom, spiritual growth, and enlightenment that this story has to offer. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be updated when we publish new content. Among the mountains of Japan, in a quiet and fascinating valley, stood the Buddhist monastery in which the elderly and wise monk Hiro lived. One day, during one of his usual lessons, the disciples asked him a question that many of us have always asked. "Master, why do bad things always happen to good people?" Hiro smiled sagely and closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts before answering. Then, in a calm voice, he began to speak. "My dears, life is like a raging river that flows between rocks and woods, unpredictable and often full of dangers. It's like the wind that blows relentlessly, bringing with it moments of joy and pain. And in this incessant flow, every event is like a leaf floating on water, pushed by the currents of what, to simplify things, we call destiny. It is true that sometimes it seems that only good and just people are victims of adverse circumstances," Hiro continued, "but we must remember that life is complex and does not always follow our concept of justice. Keep in mind that there are multiple factors at play, some of which are beyond our understanding. You see, dear disciples, according to Buddhist wisdom, life is complex and things don't always go the way we expect them to go. We often seek a balance between good and bad. In Buddhism, in fact, we talk about the concept of karma, or the network of causes and effects to which we are subjected. But the reality is more complex and more nuanced than that. This means that our actions can have consequences, but not always in a direct and immediate way. Remember that karma is complicated and not always easy to understand. So when it seems like good people face many more challenges than bad people, it may be because there are so many factors at play that we can't fully see or understand. For this reason, it is important to accept the concept that life is unpredictable and that things do not always follow our personal concept of justice. And recognizing these things helps us be more compassionate and better understand the world around us. It is an important step on our path to wisdom and inner peace. To better understand what he was talking about, Hiro decided to share with his disciples a story he had heard many years before during his travels through the distant lands of the East. Once upon a time, in a distant city, there was an elderly farmer who owned a magnificent white horse. The master began, catching the attention of his disciples. All his fellow villagers envied him for the beauty and strength of his horse. But one day, the horse suddenly fled into the surrounding forest, losing track of him. The disciples, intrigued by the story, listened carefully and impatiently wondered what the conclusion would be. The villagers expressed to the farmer their displeasure at his misfortune. Hiro continued, but the elder wisely replied, "Who can say what is good and what is bad?" After a few days, the horse returned accompanied by a herd of wild horses, continued the master. Now the farmer owned not only his beloved white horse, but also many other horses. The villagers again went to the farmer to congratulate him on his good fortune, but the old man repeated again, "Who can say what is good and what is bad?" The disciples were deeply impressed by the lesson given to them by the master, and they began to understand that life is a mystery beyond our limited understanding, and that good and evil are relative concepts, subject to the perspective and wisdom of the present moment. After a few days, the farmer's son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the wild horses. Hero continued, and everyone in the village thought it was a great misfortune. What seemed like luck, the fact that the farmer had found himself with an enormous herd of horses, had turned into great misfortune, all the villagers thought. However, when the army invaded the village and conscripted all the younger men, the farmer's son was spared due to his temporary infirmity. So once again, the fellow villagers made their comments on the farmer's luck, and once again the elder said, "Who can say what is good and what is bad?" The disciples sat in silence, meditating on the master's words and the hidden wisdom behind the farmer's story, and they began to understand how every challenge that life would throw their way would contribute to their spiritual path.
And what do you think about this topic? Write it in the comments. Also, if you are enjoying the video, please like and share it. This way, you will help us produce new valuable content every day.
Given the enormous interest of his disciples, the monk Hero delved further into the topic and decided to tell another story, a tale he had heard during his years of study and meditation in the Buddhist monasteries of the remote lands of the Himalayas. In ancient times, the master began, there was a silk merchant named Chen who lived in a small town on the banks of a river. Chen was known for his generosity and kindness. He regularly helped friends and neighbors in need and donated part of his earnings to those most in need. The disciples, who listened carefully, intrigued by the new story, meditated on every single aspect they were learning. One day, while traveling along the Silk Road, Chen was robbed by a group of bandits. Hero continued, the merchant lost everything he had hard-earned and returned home with a broken heart. His fellow villagers and his friends, seeing him so desperate, wondered how such a good person could be the victim of such an injustice. But Chen remained calm and serene. The master continued and said to them, "Who can say what is good and what is bad?" Chen's words aroused wonder and confusion among his friends and neighbors. How could he see such a terrible thing as an opportunity? Yes, they all asked. And as time passed, something extraordinary happened. The merchant, after pondering how to get back on his feet and feed his family, decided to start from scratch by opening a small shop selling handicrafts. Chen began to dedicate himself body and soul to his new business, showcasing his talent and passion for craftsmanship, and soon his shop became renowned throughout the region for the quality and originality of its products. Buyers began to arrive from far away, bringing prosperity and fame not only to Chen's family, but to the entire community, and his fellow villagers realized that what seemed like an initial misfortune had turned into a blessing for everyone. Chen, with his wisdom and determination, had transformed a misfortune into a new opportunity for growth and success. Business, going so well, had contributed to his serenity and that of the whole village. The disciples were struck by the depth of the lesson Hero taught them, and they understood that life is an intricate web of events influenced by multiple causes and conditions. The illusion of moral reciprocity, which makes us believe that good is always rewarded and evil is punished, is only a reflection of our limited understanding of reality. Thus, the disciples began to see the world with new eyes, aware that good and evil are just points of view, and that every experience brings with it precious lessons to learn. True wisdom lies in accepting the unpredictable nature of life, embracing challenges and difficulties with compassion and wisdom. Every event, whether positive or negative, offers us an opportunity to grow and learn, thus contributing to our spiritual journey towards enlightenment. Let us always remember that in the heart of adversity lie the greatest lessons, and in the profound understanding of our interconnection with all that exists. we find true inner peace.